I think today's news, both about the passage of the Rwanda bill overnight, but also about further deaths in the Channel, should really focus all of our minds. The Rwanda legislation is not just wrong because of the way in which it flagrantly ignores the rights as set out in international law of refugee and asylum seekers, but there's a second reason it's wrong. It sets an extremely alarming precedent where the UK government is saying it can legislate to force courts not to properly assess evidence in making their judgments. That's something that has implications far wider even than just asylum and refugee policy. So on a day when we've seen those deaths, I'm very worried not just about the legislation and its impact on refugee and asylum seekers, but actually its impact more broadly for UK leadership around the world and for international human rights and international law around the world. It's not enough for the UK government to say that international law matters when through its own actions, for example the Rwanda bill that just passed overnight, what it's doing is actually changing the nature of whether its own courts can have independence of looking at evidence, which is one of the fundamental principles that underline rights. So I think what we have at the moment is a very big gap between the rhetoric of the UK government in support of the international order, but actually its actions, which are increasingly recklessly damaging that international order and putting at grave risk something that the UK played a big part in building in the ashes of the Second World War. It's time for those of us who care about international law and who care about legal standards to stand up and clearly say to our governments, enough is enough. And that's very much what Amnesty is trying to say here in the UK.